Faewood Acres finally has running water. I'm collecting lots of rainwater off of my metal building, and I have up to 10,000 gallons of capacity. I want to walk you through the steps that I took to connect my gutters to these humongous rain barrels. Connecting my gutters to the downspouts that are going to eventually go to my big tanks down there, that's the first step. I want to tell you the pieces that I actually use to connect everything. But I made one really big mistake and one tiny mistake. I'm going to tell you all about it as I walk through it. The first thing we have here is the actual downspout. You can see that there's a grate over top of that to make sure that all the big debris stays out. I don't have a lot of really large trees near the building. That was intentional, and for this reason, I didn't want all those leaves going on top of the building. I was fortunate that I didn't have any really large trees around, and that I had a site to select that I wasn't going to get a lot of that debris. So I got lucky in that respect. Not everybody has that flexibility, and they may have a lot more trees. So luckily I don't have a lot of stuff that needs to get filtered out, and I don't need to clean my gutters a whole lot. The very next step down here, most of the gutters, they have a square outlet coming off the gutter, and this first piece of 3-inch PVC is an adapter going from the square shape of the gutter into a round shape that can connect to the regular PVC pipe. This is 3-inch in diameter, and you see a small piece of just regular 3-inch PVC pipe, and then it goes into a Y connection. So one part is going into the actual tanks over there. I'll talk about that in a minute. And then the other part of the pipe goes down into more PVC pipe. I'm going to talk about the reason for this in just a second, as soon as I get off this ladder. So first off, the PVC pipe that I used, it's 3-inch diameter. You could potentially use larger, but that's what I went with. I thought it was large enough for the capacity of the building and the roof. But this is actually drain pipe. And there's a difference between drain pipe and what they call Schedule 40. There's different thicknesses of pipes, and they don't directly fit one into the other. So a 3-inch drain pipe is not the same as a 3-inch Schedule 40 pipe. This is an important difference because the drain pipe is extremely thin-walled and very, very light. I would definitely recommend going this route if you have all of the available pieces. I'll talk about in a minute how I don't have all the available pieces and what I had to do about that. So as I said, as soon as I come off the ladder, I'm going to explain to you why this pipe even goes down. Why not just directly into the tank? This part that goes down off of that T and comes down against the building, goes all the way down here to the bottom. And this is what they call a first flush. The first flush is meant to get rid of the initial debris that comes along with a new rainfall. So when it first rains, there's tons of junk and bird poop and everything on top of your building, and you don't want that in your tanks if you can avoid it. So the intent is for that water to come down off of this big old building with all that junk and the dust and the pollen and the bird poop, and it goes down first into this pipe all the way down, and you'll see at the bottom it's capped off, and it will first fill up this pipe with all that nasty gunky water, and then when it fills all the way up to that T again, then it goes over and into the tanks. So the first flush, it comes all the way down. You see it goes with a couple of 45-degree bends. It goes up against the building where I have that strap, so it keeps it nice and tight against the building. And when it fills with water, it doesn't, sag down or break or anything. So that's nice and tight. You'll see I have some metal screws going into the side of the beam right there, just to make sure that it's nice and tight. I have it underneath that 45-degree elbow. So that's, hopefully it's gonna actually catch on to the bottom part of that elbow and hold on tighter to that pipe. If I was to put it into kind of, some of the straight section here, it might end up slipping down, maybe, even come off or perhaps put that part out of level. So I didn't want any of that. So put the strap directly under that 45-degree elbow. It comes all the way down, straight against the building. And we have our second strap right here. And this is gotcha number one. So gotcha number one, this is all drain pipe. That's the thin-walled stuff that I talked about earlier. And it turns out that when I went to the store, they didn't have any of the screw caps or any of this stuff for drain pipe. Perhaps you really can't find them anywhere. Probably online you can find it, but I didn't find it in the store. So what that meant was I needed to convert the drain PVC pipe into Schedule 40 pipe. So this is the heavier stuff that you would probably use, inside your actual house. So this is an adapter that converts one to the other, and then the rest of this is Schedule 40. So a standard 90-degree elbow. There's a short piece of PVC inside, and then this cap on top. Now, when that first flush, it fills all the way up, and that's the reason why you have to actually, cap it off with this screw cap, because you want it to fill up before it goes all the way up top, fills up, and then it goes across into the pipe. But you don't want it to sit there forever, that nasty water. You want to be able to clear it out. So first of all, this unscrewable screw cap here, I can take this off to actually take the water out. And also underneath, let me see if I can get down there. You will see a tiny little hole right there. And that is a very tiny hole that allows the water just to drip out over time, and so it doesn't fill up. And the next time that a big rainfall comes through, this will be empty, and it'll do first flush yet again. Now, screw up number two is I put this hole, this tiny hole, I put it on the absolute bottom, and I wouldn't really recommend that because I think it really gets clogged up. I would say, put your hole on the side, or heck, even on the top here, so that a lot of that debris, a lot of that gunk that collects on the bottom doesn't plug up your hole. I've learned that now that this gets plugged up pretty easily, and I would say I probably have to drill another hole. So that's what I would recommend there. So I'm back up at the ladder again to tell you about this Y adapter here. So we talked earlier how it goes straight down and into the first flush, and then when that fills up, it comes over here into the Y and it goes into the tanks. I just want to point out the direction that you actually put this adapter on is important. It may look upside down, but that's intentional. You don't want anything to go that direction when it's still trying to fill up the first flush. So only when this fills up, then you want it to go out that direction. If it was turned the other way, some of that first nasty water might actually make its way into the tank. So this is just a small intentional choice so that we keep our tanks as clean as possible. So here's the pipe that goes into the tanks, and I just want to emphasize again, this is the drain pipe, not the Schedule 40, and I think that's especially important for this particular piece. This would be quite heavy, and if you add in all the water that's coming in through here, I don't know how good I would feel about that. Just kind of hanging over. It's unsupported except by the tank itself. So you see, as it goes into the tank, there's an obvious 90-degree there, and then a short piece of the drain pipe, and you'll see that short coupling right there before it enters the tank. The entire purpose of that is just so that it sits on top of the tank without falling in. And then directly below that coupler, you'll see, perhaps you see a little piece of PVC pipe going into the tank. It doesn't go in very far. There are some videos out there that talk about the potential for like a baffle, something that so that the water doesn't go directly into your tank, that it hits something else to kind of prevent the churning of all the water inside your tank. I chose not to do that, not for any particular reason other than laziness. So I thought it was good enough that the water goes in there straight. So the pipe just goes down about 6 inches before it just goes directly into the water tank. The The hole itself, if you have, you know, a 3-inch hole saw, that's amazing, but I did not want to pay what they were asking for a 3-inch hole saw. Those things are mighty expensive. So I used what I had on hand, and that was, well, I had a jigsaw mainly. So I was able to use the jigsaw on this tank. It worked okay. But I will say that when this plastic gets really, really hot, as it does when you're kind of carving through that, you can see that the edges melt a little bit. So, you know, just be careful. Don't touch that with your fingers. That stuff can get pretty hot. Also, some of that debris obviously goes inside your tank. So when you take that piece of plastic off, and hopefully you were able to get it off and it didn't drop in, you're going to want to take a shop vac on the inside. And that can be quite difficult to do. But otherwise, you're going to get a lot of that plastic debris in your water, which, you know, obviously you don't really want that. So yeah, take a shop vac to it at the end, and I think you'll be glad that you did. So this little piece right here, this is my rain gauge. This was a separate purchase, probably about 50 bucks, surprisingly expensive for such a flimsy piece of plastic. But this little rain gauge, it has a little weight, a weighted float that goes down in the bottom. And you have to manually adjust all of these, the arrows for empty and for full. There's some instructions that go along with that. And basically you just have to, on the outside of the tank, you have to set where it would be for full and where it would be for empty. And then once you drop it in there, it's like a little maybe 1.5-inch hole that you have to drill. You drop the float down in there, and then obviously it just kind of adjusts as the water fills up. And hopefully you'll see I am above a half a tank. So I'm really thrilled about all the rain that we've had here. But don't forget, I still have one major screw up that I need to tell you about. Okay, I'm back up on the ladder, and I gotta tell you about this major screw up that I did. So I had great intentions of keeping all the gunk out of my rainwater tanks. And right here, so this connection, I didn't do this at first. I thought I was so smart. This little piece of PVC pipe here was intentionally disconnected from the gutter, and on top of the PVC pipe, I had a bit of a screen that I screwed in. You can even see where I caulked up the holes that I had previously. So I had the screen on top, and so the water would come out of the gutters, and there was a tiny, 1.5-inch gap or something, and then the screen on top was keeping out all the junk. Oh man, I really messed that up. It sounds so great, but in practicality, what happens is that screen gets so gunked up with just pollen and tiny debris, and it got caked up, and I missed out on some really, really heavy rainfalls. I mean, I probably lost quarter capacity of what I could have had in my tanks, just because that got so caked up with junk. And I missed out on all the water because it was just splashing out on the sides. It wasn't going through the screen as I had intended, and all the water was just kind of just escaping on me. So I lost so much rainwater that I could have had. I could be at 3/4 tanks now instead of just a half. But that was a humongous screw up on my part. It sounded so great just to have that screen and that gap, but in practice it just didn't work out. So in case you missed it all the way in the beginning, what I did is I connected it directly to the downspouts, and I put this metal screening just on top, a little bit more kind of what you would normally do. So I put this metal screening on top. It keeps out all the gunk, and I consider that to be plenty good enough, especially because I don't have any large trees around here. So that's my big screw up, and I hope you learn from my mistake. So one of the final pieces you have to consider is overflow. If you are lucky enough to actually fill up these tanks, you need to make sure that that water can escape someplace. Otherwise, it's going to start backing up into your pipe and into your gutters. And I don't know what kind of mess that would look like, but I don't want to deal with that. So these tanks, they come with this threaded cap here. You take the cap off and you just attach a piece of PVC. This is, I think, 1.5 inches. And this just, as soon as it fills all the way up, this is just going to come out and drop onto the ground. I do have a screen on the bottom here screwed in. This is just some screen that you would get from for like a window. And so I took a piece of that screen and I screwed it onto the end of it. The main reason for that, you want to keep critters out of your tanks. You don't want any kind of mice or anything dying inside, because oh, that's kind of gross. So make sure that any way that some critter can get into your tanks, you have that blocked off. So let's talk about the tanks themselves. These big beefy tanks are 2,500 gallons each. I have 4 of them in total. That brings me to 10,000 gallons of rainwater capacity. These are poly tanks, so it's a type of plastic, and they're about half full right now, so entirely impossible to move. When they were empty, we were taking them off the truck for delivery. We turned them on their sides, and they were very, very easy to roll in place. We had to go several hundred feet from the edge of the property to here, so rolling them, not at all a big deal. When you actually had to stand them up, oh my God, like you really got to put your back into it. These things are much more difficult to stand up, and I would say that's probably a 2-person job, but you know, it's your back. I found it to be somewhat challenging to really put it exactly where I want it to be. It's on top of gravel here, and the gravel was already in place, but trying to move this tank around when it's actually upright on top of gravel, that was a challenge. I didn't have my tractor at the time, so it was just using my back and my legs, and it was a difficult day. At least 2 people, maybe even 3, try to move it around and get exactly where you want it to be. Obviously, make sure that it's level, and also make sure that it's level with the other tanks, because you're going to want to probably connect them together. And if they're at different levels, they're going to fill up at, in different times, and then your overflow will be particularly important. The overflow for all these tanks is only on this one tank, and this tank is slightly lower than the other 3. So this one should fill up first, and this will be the one to actually overflow, and they are all balanced between them all. So this should be all I really need for overflow. I don't know if it's big enough, but also I haven't filled up my tanks yet. So I guess we'll see. That might be another mistake in my future. I am absolutely thrilled that Faewood Acres finally has running water. We got 10,000 gallons of capacity. I have it all hooked up to a pump and some irrigation for my newly planted fruit trees, and I can't wait to tell you about it next time. There's some important steps here for balancing the water between the different tanks. How do you connect it to a pump? What do you do about connecting it to an irrigation? And I got a lot more to talk about, but I'll tell you next time on Faewood Acres.